Please welcome to the stage Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Cvent, Patrick Smith, and Vice President of the Global Demand Center, Stephen Macatuno.
Well, hello, in-person and virtual audience. We're here to talk about a very important topic and to answer a question that many marketers and event professionals receive from various stakeholders, most especially our CEOs and CFOs. And that question is simply, what was the ROI of the big event that we just ran? Today, we will be talking about ways to quantify what your event is worth to your organization. I'm Patrick Smith, Cvent's Chief Marketing Officer.
And I'm Stephen Macatuno, Vice President of Cvent's Global Demand Center. Today's session will be all about how we, at Cvent, link the events we do to the revenue or money generated from those events. By doing this, we hope to provide you a framework to do the same inside your organizations. As we all know, there are lots of reasons to do events, but one of the most important for us in marketing is to generate interest in our products and to turn those event interactions into sales pipeline and ultimately into revenue.
So as our CMO, I'm responsible for the ROI of our overall event program as a channel. And Stephen and his team are responsible for the data and the systems that help us measure how events positively impact revenue. Throughout our session today, feel free to ask questions. We'll have a live Q&A session at the end. So for those of you in the room, please submit questions via the Cvent Connect app. And for those of you attending virtually, please submit questions in the Q&A section of the Attendee Hub on the right side of your screen. And both of our audiences, here in person and online, can upvote the questions that you want answered most all along the way. So let's get started. Let's begin today with the big picture on events. Despite some economic headwinds, it's a very, very positive story. For starters, investment in events has not only returned post-pandemic, it has grown. The need to reconnect with customers and prospects, especially in person, has fueled this growth. In fact, two recent studies from the industry analysts show that around 25% of today's program budgets are spent on events. Events are embraced because events deliver results. Increasingly, however, we're being asked to prove the ROI from the events that we do, and this drumbeat is only getting louder now that profitability, in addition to revenue growth, is top of mind with the C-suite. And to make sure the return on events is strong, we're now asked more than ever to run events more efficiently than before. In effect, a lot of us are caught in the classic we need to do more with less conundrum. The good news is that event technology like Cvent and the process automation benefits that flow from using event technology can drive the efficiency that is so paramount today. So here's the big picture on the current event landscape, summarized right here on this slide. There is more interest and investment in running events than ever before, but the need to prove the value of these events has never been greater, and that's why we're here today. And this need is acute not only in many of your organizations, but also at Cvent too. You know, at Cvent, we love events. Of course we love events. It's literally in our DNA for 25 years. As you may have guessed, events play a huge role in Cvent's overall marketing mix. We invest so heavily in this channel for one simple reason. I said it before, it just works. And here's an overview of our total event program for 2024. Our amazing team of 30 event professionals supported by a whole host of Cventers will be managing nearly 750 Cvent-hosted events around the globe. 40 or so that are high investment tier 1 events, as we call them, like Cvent Connect. This team will also be managing about 250 trade shows that we sponsor and attend, events such as IMX and GBTA's convention, to name a few. You know, as CMO, I get asked repeatedly, what value is being generated from all this effort from all our total event program? And this is what I tell those that ask about the value of the 1,000 events that we do each year. In 2023, 37% of our marketing qualified leads came from events, including the many webinars that we do using Cvent's own webinar technology. If you haven't used Cvent for webinars, We invite you to check out our capabilities here this week. You can see it in the Innovation Pavilion. Events also drove 33% of marketing attributed pipeline and nearly 40% of marketing attributed bookings. So net, events are a large multi-million-dollar investment for us and an absolutely essential growth driver that we could not replace with another channel or tactic.
So as Patrick stated, events are a massive part of our marketing mix, and we truly believe in them, and it's not just because of the business we're in, but it's because we've been able to prove to leaders like my boss Patrick, to our procurement teams, to our CFO and CEO, that they're driving even more business year after year and continue to be worth investing more in. Back in the early days of Cvent, when our event programs were steak lunches hosted by Chuck or Reggie at the Holiday Inn, true story, it was easy to see and understand ROI. There really wasn't much in our marketing machine at the time. But then as we got larger, we had more digital marketing investment. We experimented with new marketing channels. We introduced new event types and formats, and we sponsored even more trade shows, ultimately expanding and further segmenting our audiences.
You know, we leverage all kinds of marketing channels, including having a big focus on digital marketing, with events playing a very key role in our overall marketing equation. But events don't just do the job alone. They work hand in hand with the other tactics that we use as well, all in service of getting organizations interested in buying Cvent solutions. So it's absolutely vital that we can quantify the impact that events and the other tactics we employ have on our buyers and customers.
In our marketing function, we've got so many things happening. There are countless touch points across customer journeys, and so this makes ROI for our marketing investments harder and harder to measure year after year. So this concept of revenue attribution is something that digital marketers have been practicing for decades. It was originally popularized with the rise of e-commerce and web analytics. Basically, as marketers spent more on digital content, they had this ability to drive traffic and online sales, and the question really was, how did those dollars lead to more sales? What would happen if you diverted that investment into another campaign? So there are many different types of attribution methodologies. You may have heard of first touch or last touch, essentially giving credit to the first thing that brought a lead in the door to the last thing that happened before confirming a purchase decision. There are actually variants of this centered around lead or opportunity creation as well, and then in between there are custom versions of that. We actually did a lot of research and had a lot of internal discussion to align on our approach, but we continue to look at different ways of how events and other tactics are driving business, and everything from bringing new leads in to accelerating deals to ultimately increasing renewal dollars. So this is just a snapshot here on the type of data that we use to evaluate our investments and readjust our events and our overall marketing budget. So this is based on the measured return we're able to report back to leaders like my CMO, Patrick. And then double clicking in, you see we look at specific events with this same lens. And then we have the event and session level data from Cvent married up to these attributed dollars in other reports that we look at on a regular basis. And we do this for all types of events that we both host and attend. And it is worth noting, of course, at Cvent, the large chunk of our meetings and events budget is for the events that we put on ourselves with our incredible meetings and events team. So these larger investments in event design, production, travel, and promotion are highly scrutinized.
So all year long, I ask Steven questions like this. How are our events doing driving pipeline? Do we have budget available to reinvest in more events? If we run 3 more events of a certain type, how many marketing qualified and sales qualified leads are we likely to generate based on history? And we use this type of information regularly throughout the year to adjust our event program to meet our goals. In fact, we recently adjusted our Q4 plans for this year over the last month. We added a trade show here, we cut one there, and we decided to up-level several of our hosted events as well, all to continue building our brand and driving demand as we close out 2024. And when I ask Steven these questions on event performance, he always has the answers.
I wrote that line in at the last minute.
He did, it's true.
So this is a full view of what fuels our marketing engine. This is a full mix of channels and tactics organized so that we can track engagement within and across them. And so as we've already stated, event programs are our biggest investment, but also the most valuable. And Cvent is a business-to-business software company. So outside of specific digital-first initiatives, as we have with webinar, sourcing, and event diagramming, which if you don't know about, I encourage you all to check it out at Innovation Pavilion, our prospective customers typically take a journey that will last months or even years. And every time, there are multiple buying committee members participating on their way to becoming happy and successful customers, just like y'all. So this is what we're trying to get to. I know all of you today can use the Cvent system to manage your cost data very effectively. You manage your budgets tightly, you increase efficiencies to produce stellar events. We track registrations for you or attendees and leads that you pass on to your sales team and get nurtured by your marketers. So you're directly monetizing those events. You're collecting payments in dollars from passes or ticket sales and also sponsorship or booth revenue. But the attribution is what completes the picture. So the first step to this attribution data, like the reports I showed, is to organize all the data that you have. So for events, you want to classify information. For example, event type, dates, stories or themes, locations, and venues, and this is both at the event and session levels. Anything you want to be able to segment and report on for your event programs. We use Cvent's standard and custom fields to help us with that. On the attendee side, the way you associate your audience to these events is also very important. So invited, declined, registered, attended, no-shows, cancellations. These varying levels of engagement should influence the weighting that you have when you apply an attribution model.
So one of the things that we love to do at Cvent is monetize all types of interactions at the events we do. In fact, here's a little tip. Don't neglect to follow up on event no-shows. Over the years, we found that event no-shows are still great indications of interest, and we've had a ton of success following up on an individual that registered for one of our events, had something come up last minute that they couldn't miss, but someone that still really wanted to talk to Cvent, and we reached out and were able to drive a sale. So hopefully you are mining no-shows as well, because those are great expressions of interest.
And you will want to have a lens on those attendee segments. McNeil talked about this in the event product roadmap earlier today. So things like customers versus prospect versus partners, demographics of your audience, such as job titles and levels. In an account-based world, for us marketers, firmographic information, verticals, company sizes, industries would also be important segments. And then, of course, target accounts or contacts are another thing you want to be able to bubble up. The other vital pieces would live in your CRM. So these are leads, accounts, and opportunity values that ultimately you will marry together with your event and attendee data to quantify the impact that that engagement has on your pipeline and revenue. So in our case, we actually look at programs by those that drive net new business or logos, and those that we run to drive better relationships with our existing customers, such as the event this week, with the aim to uncover new business opportunities and help improve renewals or upsells within those organizations. Now at Cvent, when it comes to attribution, we follow what is called an activity-based time decay model, which is a fancy way of saying that we look at marketing investments that drive activities and favor those interactions from contacts that are closer in terms of recency to the actual time of opportunity creation by our sales teams. So when you have all of this together, you get a really good picture of all of the people within an organization and the dollars that can be attributed to each of those activities. For us, crunching this data is not a simple spreadsheet. We actually use a module from Adobe's Marketo that offers us the ability to easily spit out multiple views of attribution based on the various models I mentioned earlier. But the critical piece is the collection and organization of the data. So the primary systems there are Cvent for the event and attendee data, and Salesforce for us for the lead and pipeline info. And in this example account journey, you'll notice a mix of events that we both hosted and attended, and some online web interactions, with multiple influencers and decision makers from a single organization that were involved in a deal. And also in this example, you'll see we originally met a possible user first at IMEX Frankfurt, and then we invited another influencer to Cvent Connect in Europe. We then engaged with several more decision makers at various trade shows, including the original first lead, before the contract was ultimately signed. So you can see, and we can prove, that events played a critical role throughout the sales process including event engagement at the top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. So this would not have been possible without us standardizing our very complex and sophisticated event programs on Cvent Event Tech, making these touch points as visible as all of our other marketing tactics and channels.
So I think that CFOs will appreciate the rigor that we displayed here today. I know ours certainly does. And we hope you learned something about how to truly calculate what your event is worth using this framework. And I hope you're in a position now to broadly share the success of your events inside your organizations, and of course, to celebrate those successes too. So with the data you saw, it's abundantly clear that events work. And Cvent would not be the company we are today without events playing a really strategic role in our marketing mix. But let's go beyond just the attribution and revenue numbers and talk about a few of the other ways that events drive value, in addition to the hard numbers that we shared a few slides ago. You know, there's these things called cookies, and it's not what we're just handing out here at events. With more restrictive cookie policies, if not the elimination of cookies altogether in some cases, and with data privacy laws more numerous than ever, literally all around the world, our marketing mix is getting more restricted.
That digital tracking that marketers have been able to leverage for decades is just getting harder and harder to capture and maintain. So this first-party data, such as the product interest that your attendees are showing at your events and the buying intent that you collect through these experiences, is so much more valuable today.
Exactly, and this interest data makes events that much more important, especially if event technology is being leveraged effectively. And this is one of my favorite slides, because what you see here are a variety of typical interactions that occur at events, be they in-person, virtual, or hybrid. Cvent technology natively captures each and every one of these engagement interactions and lets you assign points so you can score each interaction based on how qualified you think these actions are. You know, at Cvent Connect, just to give you a stat, we routinely gather nearly 1 million unique engagement points on both our in-person and virtual attendees. I did say 1 million, and that's actually before, during, and after our event. So what you see on this slide, this is the power of events in 2024. Reggie talked about it today. It's the digitization. Events today can be exceptional experiences, but ones that also drive a vast quantity of unique engagement interactions, which are unique expressions of buyer interest that you can capture, score, and send on to your sales team. You know, it's amazing when you think about it. In a very compressed time frame, a few hours, or in the case of Cvent Connect, a few days, events can deliver a ton of information on an attendee's interests in such a short amount of time, which is first-party data that is harder to get than ever in today's more restricted world.
And that's information that is critical for lead scoring and also personalization. Some of that was mentioned again earlier at the event roadmap. And it will help you create different segments for your marketing programs to make them more relevant and effective.
So beyond attribution to revenue, events help you really understand buyer interest extremely quickly. So here's another way events add value. What you see here are dashboards from Cvent technology that shows session-level information, the session rating, session response rate, session attendance stats, and so forth. These dashboards highlight which sessions resonated with the audience and which did not. In effect, this data helps you gauge the effectiveness of your messages, your product pitches, and all the great stories that you were telling at your event. So events offer a prime opportunity to test the strength of your messages and to use events as a way to refine and adjust messages based on the feedback that you received all throughout. And now I'll highlight a final way events add additional value. Organizations make a huge investment in event content, presentations, videos, session abstracts, social media posts, you name it. Just imagine all of the unique content that we're creating at Cvent Connect this week across the hundreds of individual sessions that are on our agenda. I can tell you, it's literally thousands of content pieces when you add it all up. And that content has ongoing value, far beyond just Cvent Connect itself. Data from our event suggests that about 15 to 20% of attendees come back to access content on demand after our events end. But beyond just featuring content on demand, think about leveraging your content in other ways and through other channels. It can truly be the fuel for other marketing campaigns. And also think about setting up an event content hub like the one shown here. If you were in the product roadmap today, this might look familiar. This is a screenshot from our Events Plus product. You can check out Events Plus at our Innovation Pavilion.
You can also see Events Plus in action on our website within the resources section under events.
Yes, we like to drink our own Kool-Aid, as we say. So you can use Events Plus as a content gallery and as a hub to promote your future events. Events Plus can be used as a way to build and engage your event community, which is a topic that everyone's talking about. A community that keeps engaging before, during, and after your events, and one that is engaging with your brand year-round. So events as a way to drive year-round engagement with your most important audience, that's game-changing. So we talked about a lot today, but Stephen and I wanted to leave you with some final takeaways. The first is that to prove all of the amazing value that I know you're generating from your events, please partner with your marketing ops teams. Their methodologies and knowledge of attribution models will underpin your ROI calculations.
Consolidate your event tech. The only way to put all these pieces together to prove the value of any event and every event you do is to standardize on one event system of record, one consolidated event tech stack. And once your event tech is consolidated, make sure you integrate your event data into your MarTech stack and CRM systems so you can take the right follow-up actions and tie events to pipeline and revenue, further justifying the investment you make in your meetings and events programs.
And finally, and I think this is the biggest message that you heard resoundingly today, be excited, inspired, and proud of the fact that events are more important and more essential than ever. They build your brand, they drive your revenue engine, and they add value in numerous other ways, only some that we highlighted here today.
With that, it is time to turn to Q&A.
Yes, it is. Get those questions in, please. We will read them off as they come in, and then hopefully answer them to your satisfaction. Okay, so I'm also going to pull up our attendee hub. So I will do the moderating for the Q&A.
Okay.
Okay, so here is the first one. So we talked about attribution models, right? So which attribution model works best for those just starting out? Because they can be pretty complex. Like
okay,
activity-based time decay sounds
It's a little complicated, yeah, so that's a great question. What I would recommend is that there is a pretty rudimentary approach, which is basically understand all of the things that are happening within an account, within an organization, within the context that you're speaking with. And we kind of call it a peanut butter spread approach, where you give credit to everything equally. So once a deal comes in, you just see what's going on and basically divide it by the number of activities and then look at what those contacts are doing. The reason I say it's a good way to start off is because then you can actually see those dollars as they're coming in, and then you can make tweaks and adjustments from there. You probably will want to have conversations with your sales and marketing leaders about it, and you can kind of make adjustments and see what other models work for you. But the basic thing is just getting it all sorted out, standardized, and organized, and that peanut butter approach, I think, is a good, very, very first step.
Thank you. So do you give a higher weightage in your attribution model for events or face-to-face interactions versus online behaviors? I'll take this one. This is really kind of interesting. When Stephen talked earlier about the Chuck and Reggie lunches at the Holiday Inn, I mean, that was the marketing engine, that and a lot of emails. But we've really embraced a lot of digital marketing, and with that, a lot of content creation that is digitally distributed. So we have all kinds of interactions that we track. We also have certain events that trigger a marketing qualified lead right away, and event attendance is one of those. When there's a face-to-face attendee, we consider that a marketing qualified lead right away, and it goes to sales. All those other interactions, if you open an email, if you click on a content piece and download it, if you go to our website, uniquely each of those things does not equal a marketing qualified lead yet. We do have thresholds where if you do enough of those actions, they become a lead. But for us, If we see you at an event like Cvent Connect, yes, you are all leads for us here this week. So thank you for that. You would be considered a lead that we would hopefully follow up on after the fact. Okay, next question. How do you use engagement data in Cvent to assist with lead scoring? Because we showed how you can assign points to various interactions which have scores. And we actually do that with Cvent Connect, where we score every interaction and send in rank order to sales the highest engaged contacts. But the question would be, how do you use engagement data in Cvent to assist with a broader lead scoring?
Yeah, I can take that one. So on the scoring side, the engagement data in Cvent is very, very critical. We're able to classify things like what are they interested in. We're able to see the level of engagement in terms of what people are participating in around those events. And we use that to contribute to the score to help identify for us, again, things like product interest, and then the level of engagement, both for an individual contact as well as a collection of contacts within the same organization. So that is definitely a big feeder into our scoring programs and something that our sales teams find a lot of value in.
Yeah, our lead scoring is really important. We actually, I think we had 15 separate lead scoring frameworks at one point.
We
consolidate all down to one. So lead scoring is really important, and all this great event data, this first-party data, you can add into your lead scoring frameworks, and really easily now that we are assigning points to every one of these interactions. Okay, another question. What good things have you seen happen in the past when you show event success to executives? And that's really, I think, one of the topics that we've hit hard over the years at Cvent Connect is us collectively as an event community taking our rightful seat at the boardroom table. I think Time Magazine, I believe, as a chief events officer, and that was pretty big news. You know, when you have a more restricted marketing mix, when you have all this time and energy you're putting into events, and you can now take events from very qualitative, hey, sales said it went well, to actually showing attribution to revenue, you're in awesome shape. So that's really cool, and that's the world we're in right now, which is really exciting. So I think what we've seen is we've seen people over the years, because they've been able to show these numbers, get promoted, get more events done, build more teams, and really take off in their careers. And I think that's awesome, and that's the world we're in right now, is the ability to quantify all these awesome events. So I hope all of you, obviously, to take your seat at a boardroom table. Emily, in the audience, all right.
I definitely wanted to get to some questions that have been voted on here.
Yep.
All right. How do you measure ROI for sponsors, and how do you get their data to show to other sponsors the results of their past events?
You want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. I mean, again, with Cvent, we're able to track a lot of things. For example, the engagement that the attendees are having with sponsors or exhibitors, or even like, advertisements that may be populated on their event websites. We saw some new functionality this morning today that will help with some of that. So I think a lot of this data is the stuff that our sponsors are finding valuable in terms of figuring out, will they renew next year? How do the pricing or different promotional packages that they could subscribe to change based on the engagement activities that they've seen. So I think, again, Cvent for us has been an invaluable tool, of course, for identifying some of that information, and it has really been important for the sponsors.
Awesome. And the next most voted question, how did you gather this data?
How did we gather this data? Magic, hard work. You want to take
Wait,
that
I'm
one?
sorry. Did we repeat the question?
For what you displayed, how did you gather the data that was presented?
Oh, okay. So in all the dashboards? So
Correct.
Ultimately, these dashboards, we have so many different things that we build out for internal consumption, but ultimately all of this data lives in Cvent, originated in Cvent, and it's just a matter of us marrying together some of that information with systems like I mentioned, our automation platform, our marketing automation platform. We use Adobe's Marketo, and then also our Salesforce system. So Cvent is the source of truth for, again, a lot of this event and attendee data, and the way that we've standardized that to be able to look at events in kind of a similar way, even though they're very different purposes and different formats, has been the process for us.
Yeah, and I think as you saw today in some of those slides, we really want to look at the overall journey. We want to understand how effective events are at the top of the funnel, in the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel, and how they interact together. And we're selling, deals at Cvent that are several $1,000s to millions of dollars. And The bigger the deal, the more people tend to be involved, the longer it might take, the more techniques interact together. And that's one of the things that we try to educate Blackstone on, or the rest of the executive team at Cvent. A lot of times people want to say, well, what are the top two or three things that work, and let's go all in on those. And what we found is it all works together, and different buyers and different titles and different levels really interact with different things. So that's why it's really important to have all this data and understand how events interrelate with your other marketing channels.
Thank you. For internal meetings and events, how do you measure the ROI?
Internal meetings and events, yeah, really interesting. What we like to do there, so the question was, how do you measure the impact of internal events? It's harder because it's not necessarily revenue, but what we do at Cvent is we use a lot of our surveys. We look at the number of emojis and emoticons and little smiley faces and so forth that people have at sessions. We look at how long people stayed in the session. We just did a town hall for our global employee base, and it's a virtual event. We actually record the content, but then we have everyone, kind of it's a Simi Live situation where everyone watches it at the same time. And we're looking at how many people react to a poll, how many questions are asked, what's going on in chat, right? So it's a little bit more qualitative, but you can use Cvent data and these triggers and signals to check out engagement, and that's a proxy for interest and attention being paid to the event that you're running.
Yeah, I think the survey piece is critical, right? Getting feedback from the employees before and after. How does that impact the voice of the employee throughout? And then are we addressing questions and as we collect even more feedback for the future internal events? I think that's been helpful.
This one was another popular question. How do you determine how many head count you need to run all of your events?
So I think at Cvent Connect this week we have 480 Cventers here maybe, plus a lot of other people. Emily, it's interesting. I think this goes from when you look at all the events that you're running, it's just over time you sort of gather what you need. So for our product seminars, which are events that are, we come to a city near you and we actually do have lunch, but hopefully not at the Holiday Inn anymore. Typically they're a little better than that. No offense to the Holiday Inn though. We love the Holiday Inn too. But we know that one or two people on the Cvent side can really staff that up. But for Cvent Connect, we use a lot of repetition and look at over the years how many people that we've needed to go. For trade shows, we do something similar. But a lot of that does really tie back to the level of investment we have in a trade show and the number of people, the size of our booth. And, we've kind of done our own math to figure out what we need to do. We haven't yet built a resource planning module in Cvent, but I know that's something that's asked about.
Yeah, the tool itself does help us because we do have different roles, right, that people can play. And so from an operational perspective, we build out playbooks based on different event types that we run. And then as we need to invest more, let's say in the quantity of those events, then obviously we can kind of extrapolate a headcount number to support those increased volume of events. And then as things get more maybe sophisticated or complex, you can dial in on the specific roles that you may need a little bit more capacity in.
And we really do look at the ratio between Cvent and the other attendees that we expect to interact with at an event and adjust our numbers that way.
Great. This one is about how to decide what events to attend when you don't have any historical data on past performance and you're thinking about adding some new events to your mix.
Yeah, it's a good one too. Certainly, if you have thoughts, I have a couple.
We have the luxury now to experiment a little bit more, right? We try to study things like what is the profile of the attendees, exactly. What other exhibitors potentially are there that may be related to us, either be a partnership or potentially competitive. So that helps us make some justification. But I think the thing that gives us confidence is that we're able to evaluate, at least after the first time, was it a good event? Was it worth doing more in? Should we pull back a little bit? And so I think that we have some freedom of experimentation internally to our own marketing department because we're able to measure the impact that ultimately will have on sales pipeline.
Yeah, we have a research team at Cvent that looks at trade shows all around the world. And they look at past attendees, past sponsors, right? If you can ask for the list, or even if they won't give you the list, which they probably won't with names, you might be able to get titles and organizations. So we look at that and bounce it against the verticals that we're going after and the personas that we want to reach. And if you have a team doing enough research, you can see that this event looks a lot like another one that you do, which is really successful. Of course, if you're breaking into a new market, you might have to take a leap of faith, Emily. But yeah, we look very, very closely at trying to match events to the audiences and the segments that we go after.
Thank you. That's all the questions.
All right.
Thank you for the question.
Well, thanks for attending today. I know right after lunch it was a very technical topic, but thanks for hanging in there with us.
Picture